Hey everyone, this video is going to be all about the rarest comic ever printed in Canadian history. So I'm Dave Dustin, I'm a comic historian and collector from Toronto, Canada, and the book I'm referring to is this right here. Picture Adventure #1 with the story The Last of the Mohicans. So I have a lot of rare comics in my collection. That's why I'm making these videos over here on YouTube and that and on social media to try and document some of the rarest stuff I find that nobody knows exists, just so that I can preserve that history. So I just discovered this existed in 2018, and it is and always will be the rarest comic in my collection. So I have a lot of other rare comics. People all the time say, oh, what's the rarest comic you have? And I have a whole bunch, including these ones behind me. These ones behind me, there's no other photos of these books anywhere online, on the internet, in the world. These are the only ones that I have ever discovered existed. I can't find any others of these. These were not American comics. These are distributed in Canada and England, Scotland, Australia. And these ones, you can't find another copy of these anywhere. So they are extremely rare books, but they still would have had bigger print runs in the tens of thousands anyway. So that's what makes this so rare. It's the only copy known to exist. It is some sort of a sample or promotional copy of a book that was printed by this tiny little press just for their own purposes. It was probably never distributed. There's no price on it. So it's just a knockoff book that was just used to try and drum up business, is what everyone is guessing. And it was used to just, show off what their press can do and try and get some more business from publishers to use them as the printing press. But these ones here, they would have had tens of thousands of copies. American comics at the time, they'd have print runs in the hundreds of thousands. It would easily be in the late 40s, early 50s, when all these books were published. They would have been printed, 300,000-400,000 copies in the American editions easily. But British comics, it's been quoted in literature that they only printed about 50,000 copies in a print run. And that was for larger publishers also, though. Like some of the smaller publishers, like Cartoon Arts in the UK and Scotland, they may have only had, in the low tens of thousands. Whereas, and same with Canadian publishers, it would be low, 20, 30,000 comics for different print runs. This, they probably only printed 1 or 2 or 3, maybe 5, just a tiny amount, and this is the only one that's known to have survived. So I'll tell you a bit more about this too, because this got us into history books. It got my name into actual Canadian history books, and my friend Mick Harvey, and I'll read you the article. It just came out last year, this book. It was 2022. I just received this last year. It's a Beaver Books for a Dime, a bibliographic history of the children's books of Brunswick Press, 1952 to 1984. So it was the University, New Brunswick, Canada, had a printing press from 52 to 84. And I'll read you what they wrote about it here. Even more intriguing is the existence of one copy of a Brunswick Press comic edition of The Last of the Mohicans for a series it called Picture Adventure Books. This lone copy is a reprint of a 1951 British thriller comic edition and has the same front cover. The back cover resembles that of the Beaver Dimes, with the name of the series at the top and a list of titles and Brunswick Press's publishing information at the bottom. Inside are the original black and white thriller comic illustrations by Jeff Campion. The book measures 17.8 centimeters by 12.7 centimeters by 0.7 centimeters, slightly different from the original measurements of 18 centimeters by 14 centimeters by 0.4 centimeters. The Brunswick Press version is printed on thicker stock. The only known copy of Picture Adventure Books #1 is owned by British comic collector Mick Harvey, who says there's not too much difference size-wise from the original thriller comic, but it looks a much more substantial, robust publication with bold spine writing. A series of them on the shelf would easily have graced my book room. The titles promised on the back cover of the surviving copy of Last Mohicans are the same as the 1951 International Publishing Corporation list given in other thriller comics. Of the 40 original titles, Wardell selected 20 that are clearly part of the literary canon: Gulliver's Travels, Tom Brown's School Days, Ivanhoe, and the like, avoiding anything resembling a Western or true crime story. Based on its rarity and the fact that no other titles in the series have been found, we believe this comic book is a mock-up created by Wardell to pitch a Canadian version of the series. David Dustin, the Ontario-based comic book collector and historian who first contacted us looking for more information about the series, agreed with this assessment. He noted that the absence of a price on the cover is strange for a comic book, but makes sense for a dummy copy used to drum up business. We have dated the comic book to around 1954, as the inside cover reproduces an advertisement for numbers 1 to 6 of the Beaver Dimes that appeared in the Daily Gleaner of June 12, 1954. According to Dustin, Leonard Matthews, the editor responsible for the original Thriller comic series, had no idea such a copy had been made. Wardell had deep ties to the British publishing world, however, a project in which comics were recast as vehicles for canonical literature may well have appealed to him, given his distaste for love and crime comics. We can only speculate that the project was shelved due to finances, as it coincides with the cessation of other children's publishing projects at Brunswick Press. Nevertheless, this title remains somewhat of a mystery. So, there's a history book all about the Beaver books for a dime, the children's books of the Brunswick Press. They were making a bibliographical history of this company and had no idea that they had ever printed any comic book ever. They were a children's book publishing company. Nobody had any idea. Like at the time in the late 1940s, early 50s, there was only like 6 or 7 publishers in Canada of comic books. There was Anglo-American, Bell Features, Superior Comics that did Century Publications, Hillborough, Rucker, F.E. Howard, and that's about it. So this book is so rare, this Picture Adventure #1, nobody even knew that this company had ever printed a comic book. They were not known as a Golden Age Canadian comic book publisher of comics. It was not known that they printed any comic book ever. That's how rare this book is. And what this is actually is, so they somehow got a hold of the printing matrices or plates or whatnot from a British company that published Thriller comics. So this is the original UK comic book, Last of the Mohicans, Thriller Comics number 15. And you can see there's an 8D price in the top right corner. 64 pages of thrilling picture adventure. And then they titled it Picture Adventure #1. So that's probably where they got the title from, is the words right there. If you look at them, the one by Beaver Press, the Beaver Dime Books, Brunswick Press, is actually a slightly shorter than the British version. And the British version is also slightly wider. But if you take a look at the back edge here, it's twice as thick. Like this cardstock paper used by Brunswick Press is much, much thicker than the original paper that they used. You see it's twice the thickness. So the original UK edition had 2 groups of pages and they were stapled together. You see there's rusty staples. Another problem with a lot of the UK comics from back then. They got rusty staples. They even made holes through the covers. Really, really thin paper that they used at the time. Whereas this is really thick cardstock paper. There's 4 groups of pages. There's no staples to go rusty. So it was just a square bound, just glued on cover. And if you look at the spine, look at the difference in the spine thickness. You can barely read what's on the UK original, Thriller Comics Library number 15, Last Mohicans. On the Canadian edition, you can see Last Mohicans in bold. And it's written the same as that is like on the title, where it's actually got all caps for some of the words and italics on some of the words, and it's got Brunswick there at the bottom. So really, really much nicer book. Look at the yellow. The yellow is much more striking and darker on the Canadian original. Like, this is fantastic. This is a piece of Canadian history here. Like, I cannot thank enough my friend, my great friend over there, Mick Harvey, who had this in his collection. And I convinced him to sell it to me, and I got it in my collection, and I couldn't be happier. Like, this is fantastic. Like, thanks, mate. This is just the rarest comic I will ever own. This is just phenomenal to be able to have this Canadian history. And look at some differences that are in the book. So when you open it up, I'm going to try and open it carefully here. So inside the front cover, there's an ad for Beaver Dime Books. Brunswick Press, publishers, Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. And in the back cover, they changed the indicia. So now it says, copyright by Brunswick Press Limited, all rights reserved, printed in Canada by University Press of New Brunswick Limited. Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada, entered as second-class mail, Post Office Department, Ottawa. And then here they have Beaver Dime Books, 10 cents in full color. Copyright, all rights reserved, Brunswick Press Publishers, Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. Books such as Little Red Riding Hood, such. And then there's a series at the back, Picture Adventure Books, which this is supposed to be number 1. And then number 1, Last Mohicans, and then it goes up to 20. These were all thriller comics that were printed. They jumbled them up and only used like half of the first 40 or so titles to make 20 of them that they picked out. As you see, there's like Treasure Island, Three Musketeers, Robin Hood, Gulliver's Travels. And then copyright, all rights reserved, Brunswick Press Publishers, Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. Printed in Canada by University Press of New Brunswick Limited, Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. So, in comparison, here's the UK version. In the indicia, we'll start off with. In their indicia, printed in England and published on the first Thursday is in each month by the Amalgamated Press Limited, the Fleetway House, Farringdon Street, London. So, inside the front cover, they actually have an ad for Thriller Comics number 16, the next one in line. A great occasion, Edgar Wallace's mystery masterpiece, The Green Archer, told for the first time in Thrill Pack Pictures, Thriller Comics number 16, now on sale, price $8. And then also, if you look at the inside back cover, it's an advertisement for Answers, on sale every Monday, 3 pence. Every week, Answers offers you interesting articles, bright stories, and sports news, etc. And then on the back, there's an order, Practical Knowledge for All. There's an order form you can fill out. So, totally different than the Canadian version, which here's a better look at it. So there's the Beaver Dime Books. That's inside ad. And here's a better look at the inside last page and inside of the back cover. And here's a look at the list that's on the back cover. Now, this is the Canadian edition of the book. The UK edition that this is reprinting is from Thriller Comics, number 15. So Thriller Comics was around, they went up to number 450. So they were publishing Thriller Comics, this here, in the UK. They started November 1951, and it went to March 1963. So number 1 to 40 was Thriller Comics, and it was from 1951, 1953, and then it changed the name to Thriller Comics Library from 1953 to February 1957, and that was from number 41 to 162. And then the title changed again to Thriller Picture Library from number 163 to number 450, from March 1957 to March 1963. And these ones that are listed on the back, the highest number of these all would be Hunchback of Notre Dame, or it's number 7 on the list. That was actually Thriller number 42 from 1953. So we know that this was at least after 1953 that this Canadian edition came out. So once again, rarest comic ever printed in Canadian history. There's none rarer that I could ever name for you anywhere. This would have just been a promotional comic. They would have used this to show off the publishers to try and get their business at the printing press in New Brunswick, Canada. There was only probably a very, very few of them made. It was not a regular full-size print run to be sold to the public. It was just for sample copies. So it has got to be the rarest Canadian comic ever printed. This one here, I got this actually, the UK version. I picked it up from 30th Century Comics over near London, England area. I order online through them a bunch of times over the years. And I got this through them when it showed up for sale. Nice copy. And this one here, of course, came from the illustrious collection of my good friend Mick Harvey. And it is now here in Canada, back home, where it's going to be staying forever. This is just a phenomenal piece of Canadian history. I love this comic so much. Okay, till next time, cheers.